Madam President, are you ready for me to call roll?
Yes.
Trish Bodie,
Here.
Gloria Gonzalez de Lecchia, Alexis Grimes,
Here.
Sade Bashokun,
Here.
Aaron Johnson,
Here.
Christine Maurer,
Here.
Anna Smith.
Here. All right, it is 6:16 p.m. and with a quorum of the board present, I now call the Leander ISD Board Trustee meeting to order. We will move down our agenda to our opening ceremony, and I would like to introduce our cadet who will be doing our pledge for us this evening. Cadet Petty Officer, 3rd Class, Bryce Ritchie of the Lone Star Company Navy Junior ROTC at Vista Ridge High School will lead us this evening in the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge. Cadet Ritchie is a sophomore at Vista Ridge High School and a second-year cadet. He is an active member of the Lone Star Company's cybersecurity team. Cadet Ritchie takes pride in serving the community as a volunteer at the Veterans Memorial Park and local Adopt a Road cleanups. He has established himself as a role model for others to emulate. Cadet Ritchie's commitment to service, strong academic performance, sharp personal appearance, and exemplary leadership earned him as designation as a Naval Science Platoon Commander. Congratulations. Cadet Ritchie's performance and dedication reflect most favorably on the Lone Star Company Navy Junior ROTC, his school, and the district. Well done, Cadet. Thank you so much.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you.
All right, board members, I have our next favorite moment of the evening on our agenda, our Spotlight on Learning with Parkside Elementary, and we have the Parkside Elementary students here and staff and parents. Thank you all so much.
Parkside community cultivates each scholar to become lifelong learners who inspire others and positively change the world.
Red, black, and blue, forever true, will
Tell me, why do they not
I don't know.
They don't respawn it. Cookie scientist today.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're gonna break. We're gonna break them some way.
What else could I add to my sit-ins to make it more interesting for this one? I went camping. I just want to make it better. And we've made it better already. I'm just seeing if you want to add something to it. Ariana? She's running? How would they be surprised? She's being mean. Is that...
At the heart of the graduate profile is our learners. So we felt it was only right to have them share how they are empowered to exemplify the graduate profile attributes each and every day. So we are going to start with Kaylin. Kaylin, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Kaylin Clausen, and I'm in 3rd grade in Miss Kester's class.
Kaylin, as an adaptive and reflective individual, how do you know when you need help? And how do you advocate for yourself?
Well, I would double check my work, and if I don't know what it is, then I'll ask my buddy, and if my buddy doesn't know, I'll quietly raise my hand, and I'll ask the teacher.
Thanks for sharing, Kaylin.
Okay, Drake, introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Drake, and I'm in 3rd grade in Miss Kester's class.
And so as a skilled communicator and collaborator, how do you kindly communicate with others at school who have different ideas than you?
First, listen to what they say. They might have a good idea or make you change the way you think. Second, be respectful and follow the golden rule. Treat them the way you want to be treated. Then, next, don't take it personally. Just because you have a different idea doesn't mean you still can't be friends.
Okay, Gia, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Gia Kohler, and I'm in 4th grade in Miss Bryant's class.
Awesome. As a compassionate community contributor, how do you use what you learn at school to make our community a better place?
When I do safety patrol, it puts a smile on my face, and it teaches me to be more respectful. And when I do the announcements, it teaches me to be confident of speaking in front of bigger crowds like this.
Thank you for sharing.
All right, Rithvik, introduce.
Hi, my name is Rithvik Bamitika. I am in 5th grade in Mrs. Metzger's class.
And so as a critical and creative thinker, how do you use problems as opportunities to learn?
Well, I think of problems as good things, not bad things, because if I have a problem and I get it wrong, I keep on trying to get the answer right. I learned that from my teachers in 3rd grade and 4th grade when I struggled with division. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today.
Okay, Rami, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm
I'm Rami Hanna. I'm a 6th grade student at Stiles Middle School.
Okay, Rami, as a previous student at Parkside, what is one thing that stands out the most to you that prepared you well for middle school?
I would have had a super hard time getting to where I am now without my experiences at Parkside. If I had to choose one thing at Parkside that got me ready for middle school, it would be the SCSS program and the incredible SCSS teachers like Miss Standard, Miss Pat, Miss Looney, Miss Blizzard too. My awesome team helped me in class. I learned important social skills in Lunch Bunch. They also helped me get involved in lots of activities. I felt prepared and ready to take on middle school thanks to Parkside. I'll always show my Mustang pride.
Thank you for sharing, Rami.
Madam President, Board of Trustees, Dr. Gearing, thank you so much for having us out and just giving us the opportunity to share what it is to be a Parkside Mustang. We hope that you all have an amazing evening and a very productive meeting. Don't forget to be kind and always show your Mustang pride.
Well, that was excellent and so much fun. Parents in the room of these great students that are here, can y'all stand up so we can give y'all a round of applause too? And students up front and your siblings, it's a family event. Let's all stand up and give the whole group a round of applause. Thank y'all so much. Awesome. Thank y'all so much for coming out this evening. I loved seeing your shirts. I loved hearing the information. Board, I can tell by your smiles that this still is the highlight of our meeting. So y'all set the bar high. We'll see if we can't match that. Thank y'all so much. We'll move on to our next agenda item, communication and announcements. Superintendent remarks.
Thank you, Madam President. Just want to point out that as we work our way through the board agenda, you'll see a theme of strategic plan. And so you've already heard from Parkside Elementary and seen the strands of the strategic plan coming out. But you'll also see that coming out in the superintendent report, in the state and community-based accountability report, in the superintendent evaluation instrument, and as we work through some of our operations things. So I just want to point out that you'll start to see that, and we're going to be very purposeful as we go to future meetings about highlighting individual pieces. So today's more an overall look at the strategic plan, and then as we go forward, we'll start to really isolate individual strands inside the plan.
Tremendous. All right. Board member remarks.
So Anna and Alexis and I got to experience the Vista Ridge Ranger Band and Color Guard get presented the Tournament of Roses official flag last night. We didn't get to see the band perform because weather got in the way, but it was an amazing ceremony and opportunity. The president of the Tournament of Roses was out to visit with the band and the band families for the last couple of days. So it was a really neat opportunity to hear that not only is it the first band from Cedar Park, it's not the first band from Leander ISD because Leander band marched in the Bros Parade in 1996, I think. But it is the first band from the city of Cedar Park. So they got read a proclamation by the city, by the mayor, and then by our state representative's office as well. So that was really special. Vista Ridge is the only band out of all of them that has been invited. We did not apply for that position. They were invited, which is pretty cool. So that was really special. The other thing I got to do on Tuesday was I got invited out to Tarvin Elementary. So I got to see the finished product after our construction walk, which was really cool, and put on my old Math Pentathlon volunteer hat and got to talk to some parents about the Math Pentathlon program. They're going to get it started over there, so they're super excited about that. And it was really neat. We had some kindergarten parents ask at the very end, they're like, well, do you think they could really handle it? And I was like, let's find out. So we sat and played a game, and the kids were just immediately involved. So I was like, of course they can handle it. So it was great. So really fun to be able to put that hat back on and spend some time with Kelly and Principal Hilbun. So that's it for me.
On Wednesday, I attended the first Leadership LISD get-together meeting It was amazing, y'all. I want to say there was like 35 individuals in the room. And what I loved about it was people I'd never seen before, which I think is amazing. We have our LISD ambassadors out there who are wanting to learn as much as they can about our amazing district and how our district works. And shout out to Shannon. I was impressed. That was a nice little first meeting, and I mean, I'm excited, and I'm not even on Leadership LISD, and I'm excited to see some of the programs that are going to roll out. But most importantly, again, public education advocates that we have in our district who are wanting to know more about our community and our district and how they can help, and that room couldn't get any better. And lastly, also that day, Trish and I attended the Mason IB self-study. And y'all know I love IB, great program. What's going on at Mason is I can go on and on. It really, truly aligns what we're trying to do with the graduate profile. But what was amazing about that self-study call is how many administrations from LISD was on that call. And the IB director made a notice of that. She said, usually there's maybe, 5 people? No, we had 25 people, 2 board members. And it was just great conversation. So I just want to thank those administrations for taking the time to be out there and supporting Mason and the IB program.
Last week we had a leaf reception and we welcomed our new executive director, Jonathan Campbell. So it was a nice event to get to meet him and know him, and I know he's got many great plans for LEAF and just building the support services there. So welcome, Jonathan, if you see him around.
All right, so a couple of visits, and I'll just kind of give the overview. I did get to visit Parkside with Anna, and it was amazing to see what we talk about at our school board meetings kind of come to life in the schoolroom, and watch that, just kind of how the staff felt empowered, the learners felt empowered. It was an amazing day. Definitely filled my bucket. The other thing was Friday Night Lights. We've seen students in athletics. We're seeing students in fine arts. We're also seeing students who are helping out, like in crew capacity, are the scoreboard crew. So it is amazing to see all these students out there finding their passion and being connected. I had fun seeing Alexis and Sade out there at one of the Friday Night Light events. And then I got to go with Christine. We went to the Gateway event at Henry, and it was amazing to see what these students developed. They were told to kind of invent a project based on a problem they had identified. And I asked them, well, now what can you do next time? And they're already forward thinking about what they want to improve on their project. So I thought it was great. I am desperately late on posting all my social media images. So if you see them all pop up at once, that's what happened. For committees that are going on, legislative committee, and other members might want to give committee updates since I looked, and that's on our timeline for this agenda. Legislative committee update. Our legislative committee is going to be doing a legislative summit, and we're going to actually talk about the legislative priorities that our board adopted with lawmakers, with people in the industry, and find out how can we continue to coordinate and get out the message and advocate for what our teachers, our staff, our students need here in Leander ISD. So we're looking forward to that. Another committee update is CTSBA, y'all. Very excited to announce that they will be having Commissioner Mike Morass speak. He replied to invitations that the president sent him over and over again. So I'm glad they were able to get that on their schedule. I'm looking forward. Commissioner Morass is going to be speaking about the STAR redesign. And so that will be what I imagine robust conversations on learning and what it might look like as far as a STAR test in the state of Texas in the future. And I feel like I'm forgetting another committee, but I can't remember now for the life of me what it is. So if I remember, I'll jump in there. All right. Okay. Anybody else? All right. We will then leave. If nobody else has anything. Oh, I remember the committee because I had it pulled up. It was the Safety and Security Committee. So Alexis and I both are on the school safety and security meeting. You'll find out information about that meeting. It's actually under your committees listing. So when you go click on the committees on the Leander ISD webpage, you'll find the school and safety security agenda and minutes on there. So you'll know you'll know the kind of general overview of the topics that are coming up. And there'll also be more information coming out, and I won't steal the thunder from our administration because they have probably better wording than I do about another event that's going to be coming up in the district on September 27th. And it will be talking about information on details to the community about what they're going to host on safety, security, health, and well-being. So there you go. All right, that's it. You'll see all the other details in an actual update from the district. We'll move on to the next agenda item, citizen comments. And we will, in the heart and in the spirit of continuing with our student voice, let our student kick us off for starting our citizen comment agenda item.
The district and the Board of Trustees are the local government body charged with serving the educational needs of all school children in the Leander Independent School District, like me, my mother's favorite child, as they pursue their mission to cultivate each individual student while creating a safe and supportive environment. The board is now taking up the citizen comment agenda item, which is time set aside during this meeting to hear from the whole community, which can include a wide audience of the entire LISD family. Still, remember that there are other ways you can communicate with the board. You can send them an email, come to a board cafe, or just tell them that you would like to chat sometime. The district believes the Leander family thrives when we ensure a welcoming, safe, and caring environment. Board operating procedures and BED locals specify guidelines, so it is important that you have read them before you speak. The board wants to hear from everyone, but still asks you to be mindful of your conduct and the example you are choosing to set when presenting complex information. If you're presenting material that only certain high schoolers may encounter, remember that school children of all ages may participate in the board meetings either by watching them or you might see some in the audience. When the board president calls your number, remember, watch the timer and focus your remarks to the time allotted. We know it can be difficult, but please conclude your comments when you hear the chime.
All right, speaker number 1.
Good evening. I just want to give a few brief comments as an input to agenda item number 7A that discusses creating a safe and innovative learning environment for our kids. I want to pose the question, what does safe really mean? Is that a subjective term? Is that a term that you guys apply? Because I want to give you my definition of safe. My definition of a safe environment for my children is a place where they can go and not be harmed. We send our children to school to get academic essentials, to give them the ability to think for themselves critically. We do not send them to school to be indoctrinated with woke agendas or ideologies like Marxism. We do not send them to school to be psychoanalyzed by your probing surveys that violate the sanctity and privacy of our families. That is not safety from the eyes of the people that vote for you. We do not send them to school to be exposed to sexually explicit materials. That's not safety. That's not what I consider safety. That's not what I pay for, and that's not what I will be made to pay for. One last thing, apparently people that think like me have been recently described as being a threat to democracy. You see this shirt I'm wearing? Jesus is my savior, Trump is my president. That guy last week doesn't represent me. I would never wear this shirt to class or to any school or even to this meeting out of respect for other people who believe differently. You don't have that same courtesy. Thank you.
All right, thank you, speaker number 1. Speaker number 2.
Good evening. Thank you for your service. God, wouldn't it be amazing if we listened to our kids, our students a little bit more and paid attention to what they had to say about treating each other like we want to be treated? I'm just blown away every time I come in contact with the kids and the students in our area. I was part of the Leander Pride event this past summer, and it was overwhelmingly kids, and they get it. They don't have the parents' hang-ups about sexual identity, gender identity. They're at this point of beyond binary. They get it. And that's what You know, we talk about common sense, we talk about safety. I've got my Bible right here. I've got some books that unfortunately you folks have banned, gender queer and the like, that I don't understand why they're banned. But overall, we've got to do a better job of listening to our students and putting them first. That needs to be the priority, not what parents may want. Parents have them in their homes. They can take them to church or whatever religious institution they want to. But our schools are for the entire community. Thank you again for your service.
All right, thank you. Speaker number 3.
Good evening. My name is Alexis Huddleston, and this is my 5th year teaching in the district, and I am all in for sharing accurate and fact-based information in LISD. Our community has not been immune to the spread of misinformation regarding the upcoming local election. Unfortunately, we have seen this in a variety of ways, from sign campaigns slandering board candidates to the active promotion of inaccurate information about the voter approval tax rate election and the attendance credit election. As a teacher, my goal is for students to have the skills needed to make informed decisions about their world, just as we hope voters will do. However, misinformation can be extremely confusing for voters who need to have accurate information before deciding how to vote. In the past couple of weeks, the district has made a concerted effort to share unbiased, factual information regarding the upcoming election, and it is essential that we continue these efforts. Our local election will have real and widespread impacts on every aspect of our district. So our voters need to have access to any information that could help in their decision making. I am all in for LISD's continuing and expanding efforts to reach each and every member of our community and ensure that they have every resource they need to make an informed decision. Thank you for your hard work and service to our one LISD community.
All right, thank you, Speaker. Speaker number 4.
Here we go. Good evening, trustees and superintendent. My name is Mike Sanders, and I would like to say a few words this evening about the fact that in August, the Texas Education Agency released their annual findings on financial integrity, their annual ratings on financial integrity for all school districts in Texas. And in Leander ISD, we got a rating of 88 out of 100, which is a B. So I looked into the report, and I wanted to see the same thing that I do when I was in school, and I would get a grade. If I got a 96, I'd want to know, well, why did I miss 4 points? If I got an 88, well, why did I miss 12 points? Well, 8 of these 12 points that we missed from getting 100 were all in one category, and that was under item number 11, was the ratio of long-term liabilities to total assets for the school district sufficient to support long-term solvency. We got a 2 out of 10. 2 out of 10 in whether we're long-term solvent. The only thing that kept us from getting a 0 out of 10 is an amount of $52 million in additional debt. If we have $52 million of additional debt, we fall from a rating of 2 out of 10 to a rating of 0 out of 10, as according to the Texas Education Agency in the area of long-term solvency.
All right, thank you. Speaker number 3. Speaker number 4. Oh, speaker number 4. Speaker number 5. There we go.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Harrison, and I am the parent of 2 LISD students, one at Rutledge Elementary and one at Stiles Middle School. I wanted to take a moment to share my gratitude for all the Leander ISD staff and administration has put in forth to have a great start to this school year. We all came into August prepared for a large collection of challenges in our schools. The rumor mill was full of concerns regarding buses, schedule changes, staffing shortages, and whether our district was ready to meet the demands of over 40,000 kids walking into classrooms. Some of these concerns were simply rumors, and we all know that others represented very real challenges for our teachers. I was braced for a start that was rockier than normal, and what we experienced was incredibly smooth. I don't think it is possible to have a perfect first few weeks of school. Complex logistical situations, including thousands of staff, dozens of buses, and an abundance of students representing a seemingly unending assortment of needs, just does not allow for perfection. Yet I was amazed to find my kids did not feel any of those challenges that I was prepared for. They were met with a staff that was ready to get the job done. Excitement for new class groups, shifts, and adaptations around staffing issues were presented to them as unique opportunities, not things to be concerned with, but opportunities to be embraced and explored. They found themselves in a positive, empowering environment that was ready for them, despite some imperfections. I know that each of you would rather say every position was filled.
Thank you, speaker. Thank you, speaker number 5. We'll now hear from speaker number 6.
Hi, good evening. I'm here because it's come to my attention that there are social media posts out there that are implying that I, or maybe someone I know or am affiliated with, my friends, were involved in anything related to Gloria's signs. Thank you, Anna, for your post. You even liked a comment where someone
Please, no back
pointed me
and
out.
forth.
I
Make your
don't
statement.
expect a response. It's a legal activity. And so I'm here to speak about my character because that seems to have been called into question. So on Saturday, while my son and my husband were out putting up my signs, I finally listened to our coach who had said that on game day, there are some kids that may only eat that one meal. And so I was at Sam's getting meals to stock the freezers in the athletics classrooms or in the athletics area. I also want to point out that I've signed the Code of Fair Campaign Practices that I will not use or permit the use of character defamation, whispering campaigns, libel, slander, scurrilous attacks on any candidate. How many of you can sign that? The last thing that I want to point out, this is a nice little Q&A on Paxton's website talking about electioneering, what you can and can't say with your ISD social media accounts. You're in violation. You've been reported. So yes, you're right. Our kids are watching us, and now the AG is watching you. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, speaker number 6. Speaker number 7.
I just want to say thank you to the board who is out there in the community and involved in understanding what's going on. And like other parents who are watching, probably teachers and staff and administrators who are here and parents, I think we're all a little horrified how we've gone from having what is a war of words because of words into just kind of full out character assassinations. And I've lived in a lot of places and I've never seen such accepted animus towards anybody. I've never seen a grown man have so much hatred for a 90-pound woman who's made it her life's work to work in public education. But here we are. I've often found that the people who feel they have to defend their character are actually not led by it. Your character speaks for itself. And if people know you and respect you, there is never any doubt that you would be associated with something unlike what we're seeing. So what I think we need to focus on is the fact that we are in a campaign, not just because of words, but we're in campaigns of ideas. We are at a war of ideas of what certain limited factions led by, you know, their faith believe should guide public schools. And then there's the rest of us who understand that there are processes that need to be followed in order for needs to be met. And I think that we need to focus on the candidates that promote that fairness and that equality, and stop focusing on the ones that really show us we don't want them on our board.
All right, thank you, speaker number 7. All right, board members and citizens, this concludes our citizen comment section of our agenda. We'll be moving on to our next item, our consent agenda. Board members, if you'll look over, we have 3 items on our consent agenda. If there's not a motion to sever, then can I have a motion to approve?
I move the consent agenda items be approved as presented.
I second.
Have a motion from Anna, second from Christine. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. We'll move on to the superintendent report, 7A and 7B, talking about safe and innovative learning environments and empowered student learning.
Thank you, Madam President, board members. They say a picture paints 1,000 words, and so this picture for me paints the beginning of school for us in the 2022-2023 school year, because of the connection that you can so clearly see between the principal at Winkley Elementary School and the student. And so I really wanted to just start and thank our SCR staff, because they're the ones who are out there capturing these moments. And you can find all of these photos, by the way, on photos.leanderisd.org. And there's some just incredible shots of the really outstanding things that are happening on school campuses throughout the district. I'd like to spend a little bit of time just talking about this part of the strategic plan, safe and innovative learning environments. And very specifically, a huge shout out to our maintenance staff, who are doing an incredible job of ensuring, along with our campus principals and their staffs, that every door in the district, both internal and external, but specifically external, is not only in good working order, but is locked and secured in order to make sure that our staff and our students remain safe at all times during the school day. Let's talk a little bit about empowered student learning, and specifically 4 areas there. Firstly, compassionate community contributors. On the right there, you'll see KD. And this tweet went out and on Instagram as well, because after the football game Friday night, he took it upon himself to clean the entire student section by himself, so that our staff didn't have to do that. And he did that without request, without anything, and that's what we mean by compassionate community contributors. And not only students, but on the left you'll see one of our PE coaches at one of our elementary schools, and during the rain he walked backwards and forwards to teachers' cars to help them into the building so that they didn't have to get wet as they were carrying their things and coming into school. We have critical and creative thinkers. And remember, we've only been in school a couple of weeks, but we already see lots of really intense hands-on science experiments happening in our classrooms. You can see those on the right-hand side, both top and bottom. And one of my favorite at the Trailblazers is the Wonder Wall. And so the start of expression for our students of what are they interested in and what are they passionate about and what do they want to really dive into and start to get a deep understanding of. And so what I really particularly love about this is how public it is. So this is time for our students to showcase their academic achievement and their ability to move forward to the whole of their campus community, and it's really fun to watch. You've seen some really skilled communicators and collaborators here in front of you tonight from Parkside Elementary, but that's not the only place that that's happening. Being a math teacher, I'm particularly fond of that middle top picture where our middle school students are really finding opportunities to use all kinds of surfaces in the building to solve their problems. And not only in the classroom, and this one between the classroom and the hallways, but they're out in the hallways doing really incredible things. We've got second step curriculum, as you know, which is really working on character, as we've heard a little bit about tonight. And our 5th graders out in the hallways really buzzing with their creativity and collaboration as they think outside the box. And I love how this teacher describes them as tinkering out there, really in this space of social and emotional learning. So lots of really great things happening in skilled communicators and collaborators. And of course, adaptive and reflective individuals. That center picture is from Reed Elementary, And Reed Elementary is a lighthouse Leader in Me school and has been for a long time. And of course, if you know anything about Leader in Me, then you'll know that they're really focused on goal setting. And what is fabulous about this is how they celebrate when individuals in their community achieve their goals. And so it's not just about goal setting, but also about measuring progress towards those goals and then really celebrating once we accomplish those goals. I really like in the left-hand side there the best part of me, and the incredible creativity that this teacher has in putting together a collage of her classroom of really the best parts of her children. In the middle here, it's really incredible what our students can do early on at a very young age, and for a young elementary student to produce a large page like that, so full of ideas and thoughts about what a mathematician means to her, is really fun to watch. And we see all over the district our students really tracking their progress on various different measures, using run charts and all kinds of continuous improvement tools. Really fun to watch. Talk a little bit about our staff and really shout out some of the amazing things that are happening across the district. We have assistant principals winning awards. We have kindergarten teachers using their guitar to manage transitions. We have teachers who've been here for 25 years celebrating just what an incredible start this is and how good they feel to be in our classrooms. We hear a lot about teachers leaving the profession, but we don't always hear about the ones who are here and staying and love being in our classrooms every single day. And then in the bottom right corner, this is an incredible story, which I'll tell you in more detail another day. But again, a picture paints 1,000 words, and the interaction between this young man and this incredible volunteer on one of our campuses is something that truly makes your heart smile. And this, again, picture just captured my interest so deeply, because for me, it really paints the connection that we have with our families in the community. And just the way that SCR captured the fact that students are in our buildings and in our classroom and somehow separated, and yet our parents have a window into their world at any opportunity that they wish to take. And so we want to continue to welcome our families into our schools and welcome that partnership that we have with our families that make our district such a strong and incredibly wonderful place to be. So thank you, Madam President.
Board members, any questions? All right. We'll go ahead then and move on to our next discussion item. Board members, it has been our practice when we have guests in our audience to go ahead and move them up in the agenda item. So if there's no objection, we'll go ahead and continue with that. We'll move up on our operations 8C1, the LISD Council PTA State of the Council 2022 Annual Report.
Hello. Thank you so much for doing that, first of all. You didn't have to, and I appreciate it. I know you have a lot of business to get to tonight. Again, my name is Desiree Granzo. I'm the current president of the Leander ISD Council of PTAs. I want to thank our superintendent, Dr. Gearing, as well as the Board of Trustees for allowing us to present to you tonight. This is the State of the PTA address. So I guess we can go on to the first slide, and we'll just do a quick overview of PTA. For those who may not know, for our numbers, I'm a big numbers person, so I like to look at where we are with membership and what that means to the district and what are we giving back. So we try to quantify that a little bit better this year. Right now we have 43 PTA campuses. We did grow by one last year. The campus that we grew by is North Elementary, so they are in their inaugural year this year, so congratulations to them. Last school year, we also logged 9,733 members. That's up 2,000 members year over year. And I will tell you, I went to a conference at Texas PTA where I got to talk with other council members across the state and get some great ideas. But, you know, a lot of councils out there are still really suffering. They were not able to bounce back on their volunteers or their membership. And we were. And it's not just because our population is growing. We're up over that by at least about 20%, roughly, if you factor that in. Again, I like numbers. So you'll see in our projections where we think we're going to grow this year, too. Another big thing that we like to look at are volunteer hours. I'm really, really big about this. I like to try and quantify how long we're on campuses, which you all know because you take that data. But what about all those hours we log, like when we're in our house trying to take care of our kids, but also we're planning the next big event, or you know, we're going out and getting that big meal for our staff. So I just took the board members alone and looked at a very low average amount of time that they spend yearly on PTA, and we sort of worked that math out and came to about 67,000 hours in 1 year. To put that in a different framework, that would be about almost 2,800 days, solid days of service. And that's just from your board members in PTA. That doesn't count everybody else. So we'll work on trying to figure out the rest of that math later on. Yeah. So 21-22 in review. We have a lot of highlights. We're just going to go really high level right now. Winkley Elementary, I want to give them a shout out. We'll be out there on the 22nd to help present them their official banner for being a National PTA School of Excellence school. This is a really big deal. Not many campuses can claim this nationally. And basically what you have to do to attain this, it's a year to 18-month program. And their PTA, basically to start this program, they surveyed all of the stakeholders of their locality. So community members, students, staff, you name it. And they got a baseline of where they are as a campus, where they're having success, and where they could do better. And they looked at the areas where they could do better, and they sat down and they crafted a plan with their stakeholders of how to improve. They implemented it, they tested it, they gave it some time, and then they surveyed again to see if they did what was needed to improve. And they in fact did, and so huge shout out to them, and we hope to get more campuses involved in this program. Voice for Every Child is another large award. Basically, this looks at the total population or the student population of your school, and the awards are based on how many members you have compared to your population. Platinum at Deer Creek means that they have more members than they do students enrolled at their school. So huge shout out to Deer Creek Elementary, platinum winner of that Voice for Every Child award. And then I believe 75% is a silver award, still a huge accomplishment for Grandview Hills, River Ridge, Nauman, Rutledge, Whitestone, and Winkley. I won't go over the council awards too much because quite frankly, you know, everything that we do at council, it's dependent upon our locals. We can't take credit for that. That's our locals doing that. So congratulations to our Leander PTAs for being Outstanding Council Gold. We leveled up a notch. And Gold Medalist Spotlight, Golden Apple Award, that means we're getting our staff involved and they're becoming PTA members at higher rates. Early Bird Award, all that kind of good stuff. Arts and Education, as many of you know, we have a program through PTA called Reflections. That's our art program. And it's actually a national program. We also have a state level council and so on. So last year we had 120 entries from our district advanced to council from 22 of our campuses. So that's a pretty big deal. And then out of that, 25 students' works made it to state. So congratulations to all of them. If you ever get a chance, come out to our Reflections Award ceremony. We hope to increase our participation for that this year. And this year's theme is Show Your Voice. So we'll be rolling that out in the next month or so. Shifting gears to legislative action. PTA is the oldest and largest child advocacy organization in the United States. People don't think of us like that. You know, we bake a mean batch of cookies, but we also advocate for every single child. And so some of the things that we worked on the last cycle for advocacy topic areas were special education funding, which we're still working on, vaping and tobacco flavor ban, regulation, and taxation. That was a big topic. We also had a special program on that. School safety, which is always top of mind, especially now, and better recess access and policies. And then as we look forward to the 88th legislative session, 2023 in February, we will be having Rally Day. We just got details on that, so I'll make sure everybody in district has that as well, as we're great partners with that. We get students involved at the Hill in Austin and let them speak and interact directly with their representatives, and they understand that they're stakeholders and they can take an active role in that. So that's a great program. And then we just wanted to highlight a couple of our big programs. We do a lot of things throughout the district, but Closed Closet, that's our Leander ISD Council of PTAs closed closet. Last year, we opened up a south location. We already had a north location. So we have two locations where families, students can come to get clothing that they need. Last year alone, we served 3,135 students. That's over 1,100 families. And then as we kicked off this year, when we did our back to school event, we already provided 669 students with clothing items. And so we're seeing increases in this, and our team has worked very hard to try and meet the demands and needs of our community, and I think they're doing a great job at that. Again, we look at those volunteer hours. Just at the two closed closet locations last year, 7,731 recorded volunteer hours. So that's a lot. We expect that to increase quite a bit. DEI, that portion actually just tries to make sure that we are actually providing what we need to for every single child. So some of the programs that we're making sure we get on track is Kids First, where we teach our community, all stakeholders in our community, students, staff, parents, you name it, to learn how to best meet kids where they are, so kids who have disabilities, educating what that means and use some real-world examples and make sure that we have every stakeholder involved. Those are hands-on activities, so COVID kind of put the brakes on some of that. We were able to get a little more innovative with how we instructed these courses, and we're back on track now. And we know the staffing is an issue, and so we have a core group of volunteers that are educated in this, and so we're getting that ramped up again for our campuses. Sensory rooms and times for events, we're helping campuses understand that that's really important, that we have that cool down or break area for those that need to regulate during really exciting events. And we also have our traveling sensory room kit, which is at Wiley Middle School. It's something I put together a couple of years ago, but other people have made a lot better. And so any campus that needs that when they put on an event, and this is not just for elementaries, but middle school and high school, we have 2 bins, and it has instructions on how to take those bins and make those into a sensory area or room, so that we can be more accommodating to all of our children that want to access these events. And then the other big thing that we wanted to make sure that we did was break down any barriers there might be to needs. So when kids are in class and they don't have supplies that they need, or they don't have clothing that they need, or they don't have hygiene items that they need, we're trying to make sure that there are supply lockers that are accessible on campuses, and PTAs help to run those, but also provide kids those things that they need discreetly. So removing some of those barriers and other things that we had good intentions with when we had in place, but they ended up being not as discreet. So our teams have been working really well with folks at Leander, and I think that's doing quite well. So if your campus doesn't have one of those, let us know, and we'll help facilitate it. So as we look for our goals here this year, which is already on track, we're always going to follow that PTA mission. So to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children, and we absolutely mean all. So continuing to build those connections. I think we're going to be well beyond 11,000 members this year. I set that number about 2 months ago, but that's fine if we exceed it. And 44 PTA campuses, we actually already have that 44th campus getting set up right now. And plus Don't forget we have one PTO campus as well, so that actually would put us at 45. This is just our volunteers out and about. We get around. We're all over the place. We're at all the campuses. That's our goal. We want to help wherever we can. We did go to Texas PTA launch in 2022. That was at the end of July, and we saw a lot of our amazing leaders out there. You could see some of them right here. So Camacho, we had Whitestone, Rutledge, you know, all types of PTAs were out there. West Side was there, West Side representing. So lots of folks there. It was great to connect with everybody. Cox Elementary. It was a good time. We do have a couple of open board positions. We have alternative school support and arts and education, those positions. We do have committees that are working hard to help, but we would love to have some leaders in those roles. I will give a quick shout out on the alternative school support side. A lot of people don't know what that is. Those are for entities within LISD who do not or maybe cannot have their own PTA for various reasons. So places like LEO, New Hope, and then also our 18+ services. And I want to give a huge shout out to 18+ services. A lot of folks forget that they're out there and that they're working really hard, and you know, they're housed out there at Cedar Park High School. Don't forget about them. Please give them some love. We were happy to go out there and see them the first week of school. And as always, if anybody needs anything, you can contact me. Check out our nice new website as well. I think that was in the first slide. But we've remade that as well and have a lot of information out there. Anyone can join PTA, and everybody should, so please make sure that you do that, and we'll keep trying to do the hard work and filling those gaps that we can. If you all have questions, I'm happy to answer.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Board members, any questions?
I just wanted to comment. I don't know if, I know Desiree went over the School of Excellence program, but for my board members, that is a pretty strenuous achievement to achieve, because it truly is the definition of working with your administration and parents. That is a parent-led drive, and to see Winkley be able to achieve that, I believe 4 Points has as well.
4 Points has, yeah.
I think it just goes to show our administration truly wants to build a community, and they understand the importance of our community, and it is just so amazing to see these local PTAs take that on, be the first in the district, and really go at it. So high five to y'all for totally giving them that confidence and structure, and just I'm excited to see how many more we get. And then this is more for my legislative people. We need to help them with Rally Day, because Rally Day is so much fun, and to see our students up there engaging. I know there's a parent caucus, but y'all, the student caucus is where it's at. Those students, they know what we need, and they aren't afraid to tell you what they need in education. So please, Desiree, be in touch with Trish, who is our chair for that committee, because I know our other board members probably would love to attend that day.
We just got all the information for it, so definitely I'll forward that over, and we look forward.
I'll bring the coffee.
All right.
I have a question about the supply lockers.
Yes.
So I had recently heard from a few CPMS girls who talked about both elementary school and middle school bathrooms having the empty dispensers.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do the supply lockers work?
So every campus, we do have to talk with the administrators at every campus, because different campuses have different realities going on. And we want to make sure that the material or the items get to the students who need it, and they're used properly and utilized properly. So sometimes what will happen is we may have somebody on staff or in each grade that may have items that can discreetly, people know where they are. Or we may have a place designated inside the building that is not the restroom, which sounds strange, but sometimes it's better that way. That is not the restroom, where they may pick up those items discreetly. And that way we know that they get them, and we don't have other issues. So feel free to let me know too. We can get teams on site and help work that out.
Thanks.
Sure.
Well, that is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing an amazing presentation. It is so exciting to hear. I mean, I'm not surprised, but to hear how amazing y'all are doing. 67,000 hours for just your council is so impressive, and we appreciate it so much. Our kids benefit because of that, the campus, the community, so thank y'all.
Oh, we appreciate it. It's all our locals. So.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we will go ahead to our next agenda item. We have one more with a guest that will move up. Our discussion of efficiency audit in conjunction with the VATRE, V-A-T-R-E.
All right, good evening. For tonight's presentation, I'd like to introduce Mr. Lupe Garcia. He's with our audit firm, Whitley Penn, and he is going to be going through a couple slides here that discuss the results of the efficiency audit that was conducted. According to the Texas Education Code, districts are required to conduct an efficiency audit prior to a VATRE, just to inform voters of the financial fiscal management of the district, the efficiencies, the utilization of resources, and these results are to be discussed here at an open meeting and to be posted on our website. So all that will be happening, and I'll turn it over to Lupe and let him get started.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. My name is Lupe Garcia. I'm a partner with Whitley Penn. I'm here tonight to present to you the results of the efficiency audit that we performed for Leander ISD. As was mentioned, this efficiency audit was required because you did call a voter approval tax rate election. This efficiency audit has guidelines that have to be followed that are set by the Legislative Budget Board. It's more of a comparative analysis. I know the word efficiency audit is a little confusing, but that's just the name that the state gave it. So back in 2019, as a result of House Bill 3, they included this in that bill to make this a requirement. Part of the efficiency audit is using the data that's available from the most recent fiscal period. The LBB guidelines do include methods for identifying the peer districts that will be used in this efficiency audit to compare Leander ISD against. And it also includes the 20 pieces of information and the 18 schedules that have to be included within the report. This is information for the voters, for the taxpayers to use in their decision-making process of determining whether or not to vote for or against the VATRE. The identification tools included in the LBB guidelines are Texas Smart Schools and the TEA, Texas Education Agency peer search function. Texas Smart Schools was established by the Comptroller of Public Accounts, and it's maintained by Texas A&M University. And then TEA, of course, receives data each year from all the school districts across the state, and they compile and create a database to identify peer districts that are similar to Leander ISD. The criteria that was used was one, size. We wanted school districts that were of similar size to Leander, school districts that had similar tax rates and a similar type, which Leander is a major suburban school district. So these are the 10 peer districts that were identified and included in the efficiency audit. Leander for the 2020-2021 year reported 40,000 students. There's only one ISD in your peer district group that is larger, and that's Humble ISD with 45,528 students. So that's important to keep in mind as we get into some of the analysis, some of the figures, that Leander is on the larger end of the peer districts, except for Humble ISD. Another point is all these peer districts are either in North Texas or in the Houston area. Leander in this group is the only one in Central Texas, which there's a different dynamic to, what it costs to operate a school district in Central Texas versus North Texas or along the Gulf Coast. The accountability included in the efficiency audit for Leander ISD was a B. That was a district score of 89 out of 100. For those 10 peer districts, their average was at 85 and also a B. So looking at the numerical score, Leander ISD does score better than its peers, on average 89 compared to 85. School First is the state's school financial accountability system, and for 2021, Leander ISD received a superior achievement that is an A, and it also received an A in 2017, 2018, and 2019. Looking at the revenues and expenditures, kind of one thing to keep in mind is looking at the total per student totals for both revenues and expenditures. For Leander ISD, total revenues per student were $9,313, and that's less than both your peers and the state. The peer district's average was over $10,000, $10,884. The state average was even higher at $11,504 per student. Looking at the expenditures, Leander again is on the lower than both your peers and the state, $9,533. The state average was $11,103, and the peers averaged $10,543 per student. One big factor that plays a part in funding is, the makeup of your student body, the special populations, economically disadvantaged. Leander reported 7,200 students there on average. Your peer districts reported over 18,000 economically disadvantaged students in their enrollment. English learners for the district was a little over 3,200. Your peers reported 6,700. Special education, you did report more than your peers. That was one area where you did report higher students in a special population group than your peers. And then bilingual ESL, the district reported a little over 3,500 students, and your peers reported just under 6,100 students. Looking at that same information as a percentage, it really jumps out here. Economically disadvantaged, Leander ISD is at 18%, your peers are at 54.8%, and the state average is 60.2%. A lot of funding is tied to that percentage. Title I funding, over the last couple of years, ESSER allocations were based on your Title I allocation, so it kind of also indirectly penalized you because your student of economically disadvantaged student percentage is so much lower than your peers and lower than the state average. Special education was one where you were more comparable, 13.4% compared to 13.1% for your peers, 11.3% for the state. And then English learners and bilingual, again, you report a smaller portion of your students in those categories compared to your peers and the state average. I mentioned earlier that you reported $9,313 per revenue per student for the most recent year that information was available. One thing to look at on this slide is 72% of your revenue comes from the revenue generated by your M&O tax rate. That is much larger portion compared to your peers and to the state. Because of the lower populations and economically disadvantaged, that hurts you on the federal and state revenue portion, and so that's why your portion of state and federal revenue isn't anywhere close to your peers or the state average. Looking at expenditures per student, again, Leander reported $9,533 per student. For instruction and related services, that was, it's a little hard to see, I'm going to look at it on my handout here. $6,833 per student. The peers reported $7,469 per student, and then the state average was $7,567 per student. General administration, which is something that gets evaluated at the state level, that was $201 per student. That was lower than your peers at $260 and $361 for the state average. Plant maintenance and operations was $748 per student for Leander ISD. Your peer average per student was $909. The state average was $1,098. And then the other category are all the other functional expenditures that you report in your financial statements. Looking at expenditures on a percentage basis, you can see that Leander spends more in the classroom. That's instruction at 61.8% of his expenditures go to instruction. That's function 11 expenditures. Instruction and instruction-related services makes up 9.7% of your expenditures. Looking at food service operations, that's the next percentage there, that's 2.5. That's lower than both your peers and the state average. So you run a very efficient child nutrition department. Your general administration, or what could be referred to as overhead, what is 2.1%, so that's lower than both your peers at 2.5 and lower than the state average at 3.3. And then you have your plant maintenance and operations. That percentage is lower than your peers and the state average. And then you have your other expenditures. One thing to note, it's not exactly an apples to apples comparison because of the way the state aggregates the information. Expenditures per student does include the on behalf, which is a non-cash transaction. It's the portion of TRS benefits that the state pays on behalf of district employees. It's included in the expenditures, but excluded from the revenues. So that makes it a little hard to compare your revenues to your expenditures due to the fact that they can't pull it out of your expenditures. So that's why your operating expenditures are more than your operating revenues because of that TRS on behalf amount. Looking at payroll costs and other staffing data, payroll makes up almost 86% of your expenditures in the district. That is more than both your peer districts, who report 83.7%, and then the state average was just under 80%. Your average teacher salary is $55,598. That average is lower than both your peers and the state average. As a percentage of your total staff, Leander does report a higher percentage of teaching staff. That's 55.5% compared to your peers at 52.6 and the state average of 49.6. Students per teaching staff, 13.8, and that's the lowest amount reported here compared to your peers in the state. And then students per total staff is 7.7, which is higher than both your peer districts and the state average. The fund balance categories, so as a governmental entity, you do report different categories of fund balance in your financial statements. You have non-spendable fund balance, which is typically going to be amounts in inventory and prepaids. Restricted fund balance is typically going to be fund balance that is restricted by a third party. Unspent bond proceeds and grants that haven't been spent are typically the most common examples of restricted fund balance. And then you have categories of fund balance that are within the district's control. Committed fund balance could be amounts that are earmarked by the board for specific purposes. Assigned fund balance could be earmarked by the board or by management if it's been designated to someone in the administration. And then anything that doesn't fall into any of those four categories is reported as unassigned fund balance. Anything that's committed or assigned can always be uncommitted and unassigned. Again, they're within the district's control. So the LBB guidelines only have you report unassigned fund balance. And so if you look at Leander ISD compared to its peer districts over the last 5 fiscal years, Leander ISD reports $3,296 per student of unassigned fund balance. The peer district average was $2,725. Other districts assign and commit. And so again, this is not an apples to apples comparison because the way the LBB guidelines are written, they don't want you to report on the assigned and the committed. So I went and looked at all the peer districts, and they assign it for various purposes. They commit fund balance for various purposes. Leander ISD historically does not do that, so their unassigned category is going to be larger than the peers. So keep that in mind as you look at this slide. It's not that you're sitting on all this cash that's not being spent. It's just because the peer districts utilize those other categories of fund balance. Fund balance on a percentage basis for the most recent year, Leander ISD reported 37% of unassigned fund balance compared to your total operating expenditures. Again, this is going to track just like the previous slide. Your percentage is going to be higher due to the fact that those other districts commit and assign portions of their fund balance, and it decreases their unassigned fund balance. And then the LBB guidelines always also include a requirement as to whether or not you're meeting a 3-month goal. If you have 100%, that means you're reporting 3 months of operating expenditures and you're unassigned. You're over 100% because you have much more than 3 months of operating expenditures in your unassigned fund balance. So this is going to be similar to the previous 2 slides for the same reasons. Again, your peer districts report committed fund balance and assigned fund balance, which makes their totals lower when compared to Leander ISD. So that completes my presentation. If there are any questions about the procedures we performed or the information in the efficiency audit report, I'd be happy to take those questions at this time.
Board members?
I have some questions. So going back to the criteria that was used and looking at the tax rate of 1.43, I mean, that's higher than our current tax rate and also the target. I was just wondering why the criteria wasn't closer to the current target or closer to the target.
So again, this information comes from TEA and PEMS, and so the tax rate information is lagging. So it was higher a couple of years ago, and so it's tax rate information from 2 years ago.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that's the latest information that TEA had available.
Okay, and then just wanted to add that Pflugerville is in Central Texas, one of those. So for TRS, you mentioned the TRS component for that made the expenditure higher than the revenue for the district compared to others. Do the others not have that same component as well?
It's the same for the other districts as well.
Yeah, but it just looked like, I thought I saw that ours was higher, but theirs was not. Or maybe I missed it. On slide 9, let me go back and check. Because I had noted that some days ago. Hold on. Okay, and then the last one is regarding the unassigned versus commit and assign. Is there a best practice? Is there such a thing?
You know, every legislative session, fund balance always gets a lot of attention. Some school districts, in order to not necessarily control their fund balance, but to show that it truly isn't just unspoken for, there are plans for, you know, that fund balance that the district has. I think it is a good idea to assign and commit fund balance to show to the users of the financial statements to the public that, yes, we have this fund balance, but we have plans for it. Do you have to follow through with those plans because things can always change? No, you don't. You can always uncommit, unassign. It doesn't mean you're spending it necessarily. You're just saying, this is what we plan to do. We know we have X amount of fund balance. We're going to spend it in this area, this area, and this area, and we're going to commit it or assign it. And that's what other school districts do.
Is rainy day one of those buckets?
That or some other name, some revenue stabilization, fiscal recovery.
Well, and some of the previous commitments or assignments that we've had have related to COVID supplies and things like that we want to kind of set aside for back when we thought we might be having to pay for a lot of those expenditures. And then deficit budget is always something that is part of the assigned fund balance. So there are some assignments that we make in our fund balance.
Thank you.
And I was looking at some of the data in our report. You had mentioned that it's 2 years behind, so some of these are from 2020. It looks like payroll is also from 2020, so we don't have 2020, 2021, 2022 school year, yeah, or 2022, what we did recently. So we don't have our 2 school recent discussions.
So this is from 2020, 2021. That's the most
So
recent.
we're missing, yep, okay.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Well, I just have kind of one summative question. I know the work that you all have done is kind of it's templated. The legislature's sort of given us the profile of what you're to do, and it's done, and it's been presented, and it comes without a conclusion or without a what next. So help me understand, or help our community understand what role this plays in the larger narrative, larger story.
Sure. So you're correct. There's no pass or fail to this analysis, to this efficiency audit. It's a compilation of different data points of information for taxpayers to review, to question, and to make an informed decision as to whether or not the district needs that additional revenue that would be generated by that increased maintenance and operations tax rate.
So effectively, it just creates a record for voters to consult as they consider the ballot initiatives.
Correct.
So can I summarize just 3 things that I heard, and if you just tell me if these are correct or not. So I heard that Leander ISD performs better than our peers or the state for less per student than our peers or the state. Is that true?
better if you're referring to the accountability rating, yes.
Yeah, if you just look at that number on slide 6, I think it was. And then more of our staff is actually in the classroom than our state or our peers.
Correct.
And we spend less on a general administration than our peers or the state, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I lied. I have one other quick question. How are the peer districts assigned? One of the key differentiators is eco-dis in our district, right? I mean, to pull districts with just a similar number of students tells part of the story, but maybe not all of the story. There are probably other districts that may fall outside of those brackets from a student count perspective that are maybe more alike Leander ISD. Could you comment just briefly on the peer selection?
So the selection of the peer districts, unfortunately, it only considers your total enrollment. It's not broken down into economically disadvantaged, bilingual, special education, or ESL. The information isn't available in that level of detail for the TEA peer search on their database. But it does, paint a picture, and it's very clear once you see on this slide the varying percentages, and then you look at your revenue per student, and then the breakout of M&O, state, and federal, and it's very clear that Leander ISD has to generate more of its revenue through the tax rate due to the fact that it doesn't have the same student population groups as its peers in this analysis or the state average.
Yeah, Aaron, I agree with you. It just looks like it's a flawed selection process. Yeah.
There are a couple of key reasons why this peer set doesn't really reflect our district. You alluded to one at the beginning, which is the regional differences, and the other is the demographic. So, but it is what it is, right? It's the prescribed process. We follow the process. This is the outcome.
So just one last one. To clarify what I was asking before, if you look at slide 9, that was the one where the district has more expenditures. The expenditures exceed the revenue per student, but compared to the average for the peer districts and average for the state, it was the other way around. They had less expenditures than revenue. It could still go back to that eco-dis situation that they have, but I was just wondering, you mentioned something about TRS, and I said, wasn't that also a factor in those?
So in the revenue figures in that first bullet, TRS on behalf is not included in Leander's figure or the peer districts or the state average. The state is able to pull that amount out of the revenues. If you look at the total expenditures, the operating expenditures, TRS on behalf is part of that amount. So when I mentioned it's not an apples to apples comparison, if you look at Leander's revenues per student of 9,313, and then you look at your expenditures per student of 9,533, it's like, how can you overspend? Well, it's because that TRS expenditure amount is included in your expenditure total, and it's not included in your revenue per student total. But that's the same for Leander, for the peers, and for the state. They just don't have the ability to remove that amount from the expenditure total.
All right. All right. Thank you so much. We'll keep digging in. If we have any questions, board members, please reach out. Do not tell the people at Whitley Penn that you got done with your presentation at 7:39. The rumor
I was
for
warned to
them
be ready
should
to be here until after midnight, so I was prepared for that.
Tell them it was
I was fully
late.
prepared for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, board members, we're going to go ahead and go now back to the top of the agenda where we left off to student. Oh wait, I saw a look. Do we want to take a break, or do we want a break? Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and take a 10-minute break. We'll be back at 7:50. All right, board members, it's 7:52. We're back in open session, and we will start with the State and Community-Based Accountability 2021-2022 report. Okay, who's starting it? Okay.
Okay. So good evening, Madam President, Board of Trustees, Dr. Gearing. So tonight we're going to be sharing information on our 2022 State Accountability Report. And with even some greater excitement, we're going to be sharing dimensions of our very first community-based accountability report. And it's much more than a report. I don't even like that word as it attains to this, but it really is what's helping us look at the much larger, much more comprehensive and richer story of our district. And it's about our students and our staff and our parents. So we're very excited to dig deeper into that this evening. So when you look at this slide, you might look at this 3,655 and wonder, what in the world does that number represent? That's the number of students that we had at the end of the first week of school from early childhood through kindergarten. So we think about that. And we heard tonight, we saw an amazing little presentation. In fact, I need to sign up for some tutoring from those students at Parkside on communication and presentation skills. But thinking about that graduate profile that we spoke of tonight and we heard about, we have 3,655 fresh new opportunities to build those attributes of that graduate profile. And so as we think about our community, what we build as a community, what we are holding ourselves accountable to, that's what's shaping that path for these soon-to-be graduates. And when I say soon, because we all know that the time flies very quickly, right? So that's where this journey with our community-based accountability really comes into play. It's really an ever-evolving process because we want to prepare our students to whatever that future may hold. So those kindergarten students, I believe, graduate, they'll come out of our system in 2035. So who knows what that may be. And so it is each and every one of ours responsibility to help prepare that path. So we're going to begin this evening with a reflection on the foundation of our system. So as we look at our vision and our mission, our core beliefs, and our graduate profile, I wanted you to take a minute to really look at the areas. I know it's hard to see here, but those that are outlined in red. So I'm just going to point out just a couple of them. We will cultivate each student by creating a safe and supportive environment to nurture their personal growth. Partner with our families. Believe in the overall student experience. Empower our students to own their own learning. So if this is what we seek, if this is what we believe, and we want to empower our students to be, then we're going to have to ask ourselves sometimes some hard, deeper questions. How do we know we're actually having progress toward these? How do we know if we're actually being successful? So this is where our community-based accountability system, CBAS as we call it, provides us with opportunities to delve deeper into those aspects toward our graduate profile. So we're going to be talking tonight about our state accountability report as well. And although it does provide us some good information that we certainly need to look at each year, it does not fully speak to the items that we see here in our foundation of documents. So we are going to look at both this evening and show how it takes both of these to look at a much more comprehensive and richer system. So I'd like to call your attention to the visual on the left. So we just spoke about our foundation documents at the bottom, our mission and vision and beliefs. And we talked about what we're striving toward within that graduate profile of those attributes. So we are looking at each and every individual student, and we want for them to have voice and choice in their learning, to set and track their goals. We want them to build that portfolio of their learning journey. So how does this happen? This happens through and with our students through that strategic plan. And so Dr. Gearing mentioned that a little bit earlier this evening. So I want us to really look at those arrows, and we've talked about this before, about aligning those arrows. I'd like us to take that a step further and think about that each of those arrows, think about you being one of those arrows, about me, about each one of us, our parents viewing tonight, our students viewing tonight. Each one of us is one of those arrows helping create that path. So you, our Board of Trustees, adopted this strategic plan this past year, and this kind of provides that map or that path toward that graduate profile. So as we consider our roles, if each and every one of us have a role in creating that path. So let's look at, certainly not a comprehensive list, but let's first take a look at our Board of Trustees role. We're looking at, they are providing policy and governance to fulfill that vision and mission, promoting those strategic goals, and providing voice and representation for our community. In order to help our superintendent and administrative team to collect evidence toward those strategic goals, review that evidence to help guide our overall system and next steps, to help our district leaders, if we want our evidence toward our goals, and our district leaders and support systems need to build understanding of the campus needs and how do we best help support them so that our campus leaders and teams may reflect on those goals and evidence of progress and think about the impact of the programs and resources on their campus so that our professional learning communities may reflect on the instructional practices and the collective student needs and what I call boots on the ground, our families and our teachers who are looking at those individual student needs and setting goals, helping them set goals through that partnership and communication. So each and every one of these roles is an arrow that helps support that overall path for students to own their learning, identify their strengths, their interests, and their passions, and just increase those opportunities to demonstrate those attributes within the graduate profile. So tonight, as we dig deeper and start getting that glimpse of our community-based accountability system, keep in mind that this is a framework within this strategic plan. So it is focusing on the community and what they stated they desired. We had our community share with us their hopes and their dreams, and through this strategic plan and our community collective efforts, together we will nurture the path we just discussed. So within the community-based accountability system and the strategic plan, we have 5 focus areas established by our Board of Trustees, and each with a very specific goal in mind. So again, these goals came to us and through these areas through what our community desired. This is, if you take a look at those, think about that: student learning, empowered staff, family engagement, equitable access, safe and innovative learning environments. That spans very broadly across our system. And this is not something that is sitting in one area. This is across our system where each and every one of us, as a system, as an organization, is committed to, and to really finding out how do we help build our system and look at that continuous improvement throughout. So as we think about this, look at your table up there on the screen. We have the 5 focus areas on the left. We have state accountability in the middle and community-based accountability on the right. So when we think about a true accountability system, it's really about looking at it toward a continuous improvement lens. So when we look at our state accountability, you can see that our state accountability and community-based accountability fall into two categories, into empowered student learning and equitable access. And those are going to be the two areas that we are going to focus on this evening. They sit with both. But please note that when we look at what our community desired in our 5 focus areas regarding staff, family engagement, and the safe and innovative learning environments, those are not addressed within our state accountability system. So this lends us more to even have that desire for our community-based accountability system where we can look at formative and summative measures toward each and every one of these areas, and we are not bound. So this is not about what I call the either or, it is about the and. Both of these components within state accountability and within our community-based accountability are absolutely critical for our system and, more importantly, for our students and our community. So as we look tonight at these 5 areas, I'm going to go back for just a minute. I'm going to turn it over to some of my friends and colleagues. And so Emily Gray will start us off this evening, and she will be sharing empowered student in the focus area of empowered student learning for our state accountability. And then we will go on to Dr. Bentz and to Mr. Street to share information from our community-based accountability side.
All right, thank you. So as Brenda mentioned, my name is Emily Gray. I'm a coordinator for academic measures, and she was trying to rattle me with the talk about pre-K and kindergartners, and I'm a new senior mom, and that got to me. So, but I get to talk about the math stuff. Our friend from PTA got to talk about numbers tonight. We had an audit talking about numbers. It's been a fun meeting for me already. As you can see, and as was mentioned in an earlier presentation, our overall rating as a district is an 89 out of 100, so that's a B. And that is what it was the last time we got a rating. So last year, we did get some accountability data, but they did not turn that into a scaled score. So we got some raw scores. We did give STAR tests, but we had limited participation. So we did get some raw data, but it was not converted into an A through F rating last year. The year before was the year of no STAR, so we did not have any data at all related to state accountability in the 1920 school year. So the last time there was a full-scale accountability system was in 1819, and the first year of A through F was 1718. If you would like to talk about all the other ways that these systems have slight modifications over the years, I could talk your ear off. But needless to say, our overall rating has stayed at an 89 all of those years. That 89 is comprised of 3 components. So there are 3 what we call domain scores, one in the area of student achievement, one in school progress, and one in closing gaps. So we're going to talk in a little bit more depth about those 3 areas and hopefully illuminate a little bit about where those numbers are coming from. But really big picture, it's basically based on STAR, college career readiness, and graduation rates. It's just a lot of different ways of slicing those 3 metrics. So that's the fundamentals of this system. I also want to point out while we're on this slide where it talks about component score and then scaled score. So the scales of all of these different ways of slicing and dicing these numbers are not consistent. And so in order to turn this into a A through F, something that looks like a letter grade, there is a scaling process. And I just want to point out that scaling process did not change. So it is the same scale as was used in the pre-pandemic days. I also want to point out a really amazing website, txschools.gov, that has, which is where a lot of these screenshots came from, and has unbelievable access to information on every district and campus in the state of Texas. So if you, like me, like to look at those numbers, that is a truly, truly excellent resource. So I would encourage you to visit txschools.gov. So domain 1 is called student achievement, and it has 3 parts. The first part is all about STAR. And so this 89 is a scaled score. The raw score that is used to come up with this scale score is the average of your approaches, meets, and masters rates. So remember on STAR, the minimum passing standard is called approaches grade level, and then passing a little better is called meets grade level, and then passing at the very highest level is called masters. So of course that approaching number, where we had 83% of our tests at the approaches grade level, that's that level or higher, right? And then meeting was 60%, masters was 33. You see the state numbers there. When these levels were established in, I think, 2017, the commissioner stated a goal that the statewide percents in these three areas would be 90, 60, 30. We are not quite there on the approaches. We're not quite to 90%, but you can see we are at 60 in meets and above 30 in masters. And again, that was in a world before COVID. So just for a little bit more context there. So this number was scaled to an 89. This is 40% of your Domain 1 score. The other 60% comes from stuff about our graduates. This is, just so you know, the STAR data is from 2022, but everything related to graduation is the year before. So this is the class of 2021. So think back to the class of 2021. These were students that their senior year of high school was primarily virtual for a very large percent of our students, and where the end of their junior year was really disrupted. So if you think about things that are in the CCMR list, like the SAT, those are things that happen at the end of your junior year and your senior year. So I just want you to keep in mind the context of this class, and this 85% of our students in the class of 2021 that reached the CCMR criteria is very much in line with where we were pre-pandemic, which is just a testament to the hard work of our students and staff and teachers, and just the remarkable work going on in our K-12 system, but this especially at our high school campuses to get students to the college career readiness. So there's a lot of different ways to get there. So the 85% represents kids who were in met at least one of these criteria, but of course kids can meet more than one. So you might get a high score on the SAT and pass an AP exam, right? And take dual credit courses. So all of those different factors, you might meet several, or a student might meet just one area and still is considered that college career ready. Some areas of celebration here, of course the TSI rate, that's the students scoring, demonstrating that they're ready for college level coursework without remediation, is a huge celebration. We also have, I want to point out the bottom two rows. Those are for our students in special education. So students, this is really where some of that career readiness comes in. So we have our industry-based certifications, which is amazing. And then we also have our students in special education that are completing workforce readiness. These are our, as was mentioned earlier, a lot of our 18+ students. These are our students in the vocational programs. So that's a huge celebration that we're supporting students, really each and every student here. And then the last row is also specific to students in special education that are able to graduate with an advanced diploma plan. So they're not on the 22 credit plan, they're on that 26 credits with an endorsement. And so that's another big celebration there. So 40% of your score comes from CCMR. That's where we got a 96 scale score. And then the last 20% of that first rating is they take the higher of your 4-, 5-, and 6-year graduation rate. And our 6-year graduation rate is a very tiny number. It is 99.6. This is a scale score that just really gets my goat, because if your graduation rate is 100, you get a scale score of 100. If it is anything less, you get a 95. So it just, the math of that doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, all three of these numbers are huge celebrations, of course. And again, that 4-year rate, those are our students that were in that incredibly difficult senior year. And so that number being that high is, again, a testament to the work going on our campuses. So that's Domain 1. Domain 2 is The higher of two scores, so this one is not an average, but is the higher of two areas. So part one there, academic growth, is all about STAR, how you did from last year to this year. Here's the thing though, remember last year, we had a very limited participation. We had about 68% of our students take their test in 2021, which was among the lowest participation rates in the state, and that was all about if you were a virtual student, the commissioner said you weren't required to come in person for your STAR test. And so we had a lower number of students eligible for this academic growth metric because they didn't have a prior year test. This is all about, did your STAR score get better from last year to this year? Also has to be in an area that is tested consecutive years, so that leaves out our friends in science because they aren't contested every year. I say that as a former science teacher. So here I included the raw scores, which aren't percentages, it's weird math. Again, we could talk all day, but I just wanted to add some context here. So in reading, our raw score around growth was 78, which matched the state average. And in mathematics, our raw score was a 72, which was 3 points higher than the state in mathematics. Again, really just to add context, academic growth is one of those areas, one of the very few areas that doesn't really track with ECODIS, right? It's students need to have room to grow. So I'm gonna be honest with you, this is an area where it's hard because our kids hit the ceiling of the STAR test, right? And so getting 100 2 years in a row is difficult. And so I think to be in the vicinity of the state, given the context I just established, is, again, important information there. So that was the one that we kept, was that 89. But another component of this is relative performance. So you can see the cool graph on the right. I know only I think it's cool, but what they did in 2017 is they took the performance of every district on the state and they threw it on a graph and they made a curve of best fit. It's not a line, you can see it's not a line. And so where the state's data in 2017 was that gray band, the C range. Okay, and so they say ECODIS is your x-axis, you go across, you go up to it's the average of your STAR and college readiness. That's what the y-axis represents, and you can see our tiny little blue dot in that blue region. And so what that means is we, in post-pandemic 2022, were above our sort of expected value in the pre-pandemic data. So again, good news and some added context there. But that one was a little bit lower. That was an 86, and so the 89 is the one we kept in domain 2. Okay, last one. So the first two areas really align best in our strategic plan to student learning, that empowered student learning. The closing the gaps domain aligns more closely with our access and equitable access, because what domain 3 does is take most of the same stuff we already talked about, but they break it down by 14 different student groups. So we look at not just how did the whole district do, but how did African American students perform, how did economically disadvantaged students perform, et cetera. So you have up to 14 groups. They have to be at least 25 students to be included. So you'll see some of these we didn't have 14. The first column there, academic achievement, is about performing at that meets grade level. So remember that middle level. Each student group, you get the score, and then it is compared against a state target. I hope you're noticing a theme. The target was established in, guess the year? 2017, you got it? And so it was the state average performance in 2017. And so we included how many of the targets the state met, just so you could see that there are areas where the state average dropped significantly from 2017. And we just, again, want to add that context of applying pre-pandemic scaling to a post-pandemic world. Still in reading, we had all 14 student groups above that target in reading. In mathematics, we had only 6 of our 13 student groups that were large enough to be included met that target. At the state level, all the targets were met in reading, so that's saying the state average was higher or at or higher than it was in 2017. But in mathematics, only 2 of the student groups were higher than they had been in 2017. What we're seeing in the national research is that mathematics seems to be the area that is more impacted by the disruption in schooling than reading. I'm going to just be honest, my senior who, gosh, yeah, y'all. I know. Right when he's a 10th grader, hey, I taught math and science, so I could sit with him and talk to him about Algebra 2, and that was real fun for me. But I understand that isn't everyone's favorite thing to talk about exponential functions. But it is something that we have all been, that has been ingrained in all of us since our kids were born, that we should read with them, we should hand them a book, right? And so our parents were doing that. When we were all faced with being our kids' teachers, we read with them, which is amazing. Less of us did math with them. And so we're working on that. But that is a trend that we are seeing nationwide. It's obviously an area in Leander ISD we have work to do, but I just want you to know that what the data is showing us is that's it's not unique to us. Okay, the other area is graduation rate. This one is weird. So the target is 90%. And we talked about graduation rate just a few minutes ago and said how awesome it was, right? But we only met 6 of the 9 targets. How does that happen? Well, if your graduation rate is below 94, don't ask me why, and it's lower than the year before, then that group is considered not met, even if it's still over the target of 90%. And so we had 2 groups in that situation. So our African American student group had a graduation rate of 91.2%. Which is above the 90 target, but below the 94, and dropped from the year before. And the same thing happened with our economically disadvantaged student group. So those 2 groups are counted as not meeting because they were lower than the class of 2020. I just want you to know that because it's really strange to look at the box and see a 90 and a 91 and an X. And you're like, I thought 91 was bigger than 90. We did have one student group that was below the 90% target, which was our emergent bilingual students. The next category is English language proficiency. This is all about our emergent bilingual students and their acquisition of the English language, and we did meet the target in that area. And then the last one is about college career readiness, which we've already talked about, is a strength of Leander ISD, and all 12 of the student groups large enough to count met that target. The last thing I want to include while we're talking about state accountability is we've talked about the comprehensive nature of looking at both state accountability and community-based, and the importance of including both. And I think this, the concept of this slide is the biggest reason, perhaps, that we need to make sure that we're always considering both, and that is we can look at other districts' performance on the state accountability system. It is a limited measure. As Brenda mentioned, there are parts of our strategic plan just not here at all. But it is also important that we are comparing ourselves to other districts. I was fascinated by the conversation during the audit about who are our peer districts, because it's hard to find any. We are a unique place. And so even when I looked for campuses or districts, not only by size, but also by their economic disadvantage percentage, we are the lowest school district above 30,000 students in terms of eco-dis percentage. And so you can see we have selected some districts that are approximately our size-ish and approximately our eco-dis rate. It's a little closer than the districts you guys were looking at earlier, but still all of the districts we are looking at here are higher than ours. So important context, again, but it's really what exists. We are in a unique place, and I find that a good thing, please understand. So just big picture, again, remember all of this is available on txschools.gov if you really want to look at every number, but except for Comal ISD, which is significantly smaller than us, but has higher eco-dis percentage, every other district that we look at was also a B in every area. And so just big picture, nothing alarming here. We're kind of on track with our peer districts. And again, that graduation rate and college readiness are particular areas of strength for us. And so we just wanted to highlight those here, that especially that college career readiness continues to be an area where we are the highest of really basically every district that we compare ourselves to, which I attribute again to, and the data attributes to that wide range of services. So it isn't just about SAT, but it's also about our students in special education. It's also about our industry certifications. And we're the only one of these districts that is high in all of those areas. And so that is, despite the challenges of the 2021 school year, continues to be true. So that's state accountability.
Before we move over to
Yes.
the community-based accountability, I'd like to see if the board has any questions. I'd also like to say thank you for your presentation. Very insightful. And I chuckled to myself because it was almost like the school finance system said, I am so complex, it is so hard to describe me, that the accountability system said, hold my root beer. So,
Hold my root beer.
Agree. Yes, questions on state accountability. Either Brenda or I can probably answer.
Oh, Trish, I had a question. The STAR data that was presented, does that also include the STAR Alt-2 testing?
It does, yes. It's every student that took any version of the test, Spanish, English, and STAR Alternate 2, if they were enrolled here in October and on the day of the test. So students that were new to us in, say, January, they tested with us, but were not here in that October snapshot, we call it, are not included in accountability. But every student who was with us for those 2 dates and took any form of the test is included.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Okay. So first of all, thank you so much for nerding out on all the numbers. I love it. So I just want to say, you know, given the circumstances that we've been in for the last 2 years overall, I have to say super proud of everyone of how well we've managed to do and stay on top of the things that we're able to. And I agree with you that the weird 95 thing is strange. But anyway, so, you know, just huge kudos and congrats to all of the parents and teachers and students out there that have you know, really pushed through some really weird times. And the fact that, you know, this generation can say that they've been through a lot, and this just goes to show you that they've got a lot of chutzpah, so to speak.
I have a question on 2 different things. One, as we're looking at this, would you say there is a learning loss or a learning gap or unfinished learning that you see in the results or not? And then the second one is, I think the challenge is once you get to a district level and you're comparing others, you lose some of that dynamic information that really our campuses see. And that's why I love the community-based accountability system that we're going to go in, because I think that gives us some more of that definition and robust information on what's really going on with the students. But y'all, you know, our campus leaders, our staff, they're going through this, our teachers are going through this at a campus level. Can you tell me at a campus level, what are they finding?
Do you want to take that one?
My first thought was, when you asked that question, Madam President, my first thought was the words "not yet," because it is true that we have students in our system that we all experience different realities during from pre-pandemic through the pandemic. So I like to think of it as a "not yet." If we have students who have not learned some of the essential skills at that grade level, I like to think of it as "not yet." But it is due to our campus leaders, our support systems, and our families, honestly, and our teachers, for helping them for wherever they have come in. So whatever state or of learning they have come in, we are working through that to get them to the place that they need to be with learning the skills when we talk about those core curriculum areas, right? We're also, as a collective unit, certainly helping them with the skills that are not necessarily core curriculum that we are looking at deeper starting tonight with our community-based accountability system. So how are we creating those meaningful student experiences that we're going to talk about here in just a few minutes? Because that's what's going to help them reach that target. So I like to think of it as not yet.
And I want to talk a little bit about your question about campuses and how they're dissecting this data. So we're in the closing stages of our campuses developing their campus improvement plans. And this is a really important, certainly not the only piece of information they're looking at, but a really important piece of that needs assessment process. And so Brenda and Dr. Martinez and I have been spending lots of times with principals because really 2019 was the last time we had this version of accountability, and we've had a lot of new principals since then, which I think you guys probably know. And so making sure our principals are supported in understanding this system. Additionally, that it's a huge part of the improvement planning process for our campuses, but also a requirement of our site-based committees that they have something very similar to this conversation at each campus with their site-based committee. And so I know tomorrow morning I will be at Vista Ridge High School to work with them on planning their site-based meeting, but we do lots of that. Sometimes they ask us to come, and often it's a conversation led by the campus principal, but that's an important part of every site-based decision-making committee, is that they are sharing their campus's accountability data with their community in that way as well.
Yeah, so I had a question. You mentioned that the last time this, which was pretty much the only other time that we've had this data, was 2018-2019 school year. That year was a B as well, final 89, but it was based on some campus level. So the raw score was actually higher than the 90s. In the meantime, we've had those 2 years, the 2 COVID years, and trying to claw way back from that. So I just took a look at where we were and where we are now, and where we're going, just from a STAR perspective. And I just wanted to throw that out there, that there's that data out there, but it's just where we are because of STAR, and we have to find ways to get back there, because of COVID rather.
And we're actually, toward the end of this presentation this evening, we'll talk a little bit more about where we headed. Madam President spoke to us tonight about the STAR redesign, and Commissioner Morath speaking, and so we will see some changes, and we'll share that tonight. But I think that's even the more important reason, because there are things within our system that we do not control, right, that we live under, and that's fine. Like I said, it's a piece of good information, but also looking at the components that we get to provide for our community.
And now for the rest of the story. So,
I am so excited about this. Do you know how long we've spent talking about more than one data set?
Yes.
What can we do to help tell us more of a story? So thank you.
well, and I'm Emily and Brenda, you all were on fire this evening, so hats off to you. And speaking for myself, I know I drilled on exponential functions religiously with my kindergartner in 2021. So she should be in good shape. I am super, thank you. I am super excited to get to continue the discussion, coming to kind of the beginning of our official journey with community-based accountability. It's been a long journey to get to this point, and I'm really excited to be able to talk about the empowered student learning focus area, because as you look at the goal, empowering students, meaningful learning experiences, that graduate profile, you look at that impact statement, students having agency, a growth mindset, and being empowered to pursue their dreams. I hear the voices of our community going back even before in DWIC, but in that, like, you know, some Christmas of 2019 when we were having those community conversations. And then, you know, the continued conversations and the collaborations on the strategic plan, the work you all did with core beliefs and the mission and vision. I hope and I think we see your voices and our community voices in this strategic plan and in this focus area. And then you dig into the key question, which was also developed through that community collaboration process. And those really serve as the foundation. The key questions serve as that foundation for measuring the work that we are engaging in. And it's not just an objective or a checkbox. It is really, our key questions serve as a springboard for dialogue and reflection. And so it is just rich. I love that we get to talk about an area that is in state accountability, and then also that the power of the and, right? So that we can also talk about and get so much deeper into that learning and the empowered student learning through our Leander ISD community-based accountability system. So our first key question within empowered student learning is that, to what degree do students have the opportunity to engage in meaningful learning experiences, to deeply explore and investigate the areas where they demonstrate aptitude, but also those areas of interest that build on real life skills for their future. There's a bit to unpack there, but we'll jump into it. First, we used a number of different data sources. You kind of got to get a little creative with data sources when you're looking at the community-based accountability pieces. They're not just, you can't derive them from the STAR tests, right? And so first we dug into the climate surveys and with parents and students. And so that's the first piece of data. And one of the things I love about community-based accountability, it's not about trying to demonstrate, hey, here's where we're doing super duper good, everybody. We are actively looking and developing our focus areas around the areas where we notice, and our community, our parents, our students are telling us, hey, you could work on this. This is an area where we could dig deeper into. So when we look at the community, the climate survey, first thing you'll notice is some of those questions are new for this year. And so we are collecting baseline data, and those new questions have been developed to get us closer to an understanding of that key question and to what degree we are providing the wishes of our community. So the first piece that we point out in that blue rectangle on the left is one piece of data. Approximately 2/3 of our students and parents feel like our schools do a good job of helping them, supporting them and helping them discover the areas where they need work and additional support. So that's a good thing. And then we dig into some of the other areas. Dr. Gearing talked about students developing goals and tracking progress on those goals. And this number is higher, I would say, if we had surveyed it before. It is a growing area. When you look at the data, about half of our students, or more than half, but upwards on towards 60%, but of our students say that they do have the opportunity to set those goals and track progress. So that is a good aspirational goal. And then you dig into the students, and their feelings, their perception of their ability to pursue their passions as a part of their schooling experience, and that's a little bit lower, right? And so it's 40 to 50%. So normally where you might look at a goal area and say, wow, that's our goal, but we're not doing too well. This is exactly why we have this focus area, because our parents have provided the information verbally and directly to us face-to-face in these meetings, and then during Zoom meetings during the last couple of years as well, that they want more voice and choice. They want their students to be able to pursue their dreams. They get it. STAR test is there, and it's important. This is where we should be focusing our efforts as well. And so this is a great area to focus on. So as we look at other areas to
before you leave the 1.1,
Yes,
sorry, I just want to go back to that.
Sure.
So yes, climate surveys are very important. In fact, I know if y'all took the TEA safety and security test or modules that they went through, they talked about how vital it is to do the climate surveys to see how are your students responding and feeling safe and secure on their campuses. I am curious though when I start looking at these, and it might be later so I can wait, but just to tell you ahead of time of how we do a SMART goal. How do we measure them? How do we make them time-bound? And especially when we start seeing campus improvement plans or superintendent evaluation, that's something that's going to be in the back of my mind as y'all keep presenting. So.
We can dig into that some. I think we'll be talking more about that in the future, and then I'll be handing it over to my counterparts over there for some of that information. So I thought Brenda and Emily would be getting all the questions, but I got one after one slide. So I am just not sure if I'm not doing well, everybody. But I'm going to try to endeavor to explain the best I can. So when we look at that focus question, the meaningful learning experiences, right? And we could have chose a ton of different areas. One of the things, 3 areas we're looking at tonight are enrollment in CTE courses, participation in athletics, and fine arts. So the first thing I want to point out is we do have some data from the year before relative to that as far as baseline versus some comparison data. And if you see in those 3 areas, there has been growth in participation, in enrollment, in courses, in those co-curricular activities. And what I would say there are some things we could attribute that to, and relative to us doing some reforms to our GPA system, looking at how we increase the number of options and opportunities for our students to participate, and then removing some of those barriers that were keeping some students. In particular, when you look at the CTE numbers and that 19 percentage point growth, that is awesome. And that's, we're already look really, really good compared to anybody else in the state relative to our college career military readiness data, and that ties directly to CTE. So that is only going to continue to grow as we offer more of our CTE foundational principles courses at the middle school level, as we free up some of our freshmen schedules to continue on their CTE journey. It's just, and that GPA work to free up students to take some of the courses that speak to their passions. We're going to continue to see growth in participation in these areas. So when we kind of dig into the second key question of empowered learning, to what degree are students equipped with the skills and opportunities for academic and personal growth that will serve them beyond their Leander ISD experience? There's several different data areas that we're just going to chat a little bit about tonight, and you'll get more information in future presentations. For instance, in this particular data set, we now have nationally normed assessments 3 times a year in math and reading in grades K through 8. And this slide, it says next year, but actually it is the current year that we have beginning of year, middle of year, and end of year assessments in place at the high school level as well that are nationally normed for math, reading, and science. That is our first year for that. We appreciate the work of our secondary campus leaders and teachers working with our administrative teams to determine what the needs were at that high school level for assessment, and then working with our trustees to make that investment so that we could have that piece of data. Other pieces of data, if you look at we can look at PSAT, and we just happen to, slice a snapshot or a slice of the apple out of that data for our 11th graders. We have 10th grade data as well. You've seen some of that data. We can share more. You see a pattern in the data points at the state level, at the national level, and at our level. You see us at the top there with the blue, and then the US data in the middle, and then Texas state data at the bottom. What I would just say about PSAT in general is that we have outperformed the nation and the state, and that also, again, Emily alluded to this earlier with some of the STAR data. When you look from 17-18, 18-19, 19-20, and then across to 21-22, because I think we've talked before about how that middle year was an anomaly for PSAT data in particular, and participation. There were a lot of barriers to participation, but you see incredible stability, and you see that our data on PSAT is equal to our pre-pandemic levels as far as how our 11th graders are performing and meeting benchmark at both math and language arts or reading. You definitely see room for growth, but you also see that stability. The industry-based certifications. Like I talked about on the last slide with that 19 percentage point growth in CTE enrollment and participation, you also just see that explosion of growth in our industry-based certifications. I would say, so there's the gold and then there's the blue. The blue is the official state list of industry-based certifications that are counted and tallied to be used in the CCMR calculation for state accountability. And the state, as you can see, is always lagging and trying to catch up to the industry-based certifications that some ISDs, and especially Leander ISD, do make available and really encourage our students to pursue, and our students are getting awarded our industry-based certs in record levels. So another area, so that last piece of the original focus area and that goal was around embodying the graduate profile, those attributes of the graduate profile. And this is a really interesting slide. So on the left side is secondary, and on the right side is elementary. And in the most basic terms, when you look at that green circle and then the green rectangles on the elementary side, you see that students and parents at a relatively high rate perceive that they possess the skills that are embodied in the graduate profile, that they are skilled communicators. They believe that they have been equipped to be critical thinkers, compassionate community contributors, and adaptive and reflective as individuals. What they don't know anything about yet is, well, to a great extent, is the graduate profile itself. And you'll remember, I get my years mixed up these days, but pretty recently we went through a whole re-envisioning process for the graduate profile, and it really did tie into those essential skills, or they used to be called the soft skills. They're not soft, they're essential, they're power skills. But our students are indicating in the survey data that we have had these important essential skills built into our curriculum and our learning, and our campuses work with our students to be empowered in these ways every day. But as far as really communicating about this entire package, and that it is our purpose that we're all aiming towards, and that it is our commitment to our community, we got some work to do with that. And we knew that going in. Last year was our pilot year where we're like, hey, dig into it, do it, let's explore. And so we're there. And then I get to hand it over to my friend.
Thank you, Dr. Bentz. So it's a privilege to be able to talk about equitable access. To me, access serves as the foundation for my personal why in terms of my practice, and also the foundation for the office. If you look at the data that we have, and I want to start with the key question, to what extent are we identifying, measuring, and responding to the barriers to access within programs? And one of the things that this chart illustrates is that we do have a delta between where our students are and where our parents are. So it represents an area of opportunity for us to close that gap. If you start to unpack the data, if you look at it in the CBAS report, most of our students, 68% of our secondary students, when asked a question, my school actively seeks to identify and remove barriers to access for academic and extracurricular programs for diverse students, 68% of them agreed with that. 65% of staff agreed with that, but 52% of our parents did. So we have some work to do there. And so as we go on this journey, we have to do a better job of communicating where we are, what we're doing, so that we can see a reduction in that delta. So this is very exciting, but it's also, I won't say troubling, but it's exciting from the standpoint that it shows us where we need to go. And we do have some gaps here. When you look at enrolled 21-22 athletic course, we see that we have a gap here. But you can also see what the district average is, it's 38%. And so we have some groups that are below that. Moving over to the fine arts one, you can see that we are approaching parity. And it's very important that we start establishing that as a goal for us. Before we get to equity, we have to establish parity. That's how we get to stability. And so this one shows us that it's possible. And so what are we doing here that we can scale up for some of our other areas? This is all part of the equitable access data, and there's something I want to share with you in my concluding remarks about where we're going next. As Dr. Bench pointed out, enrolled in career and technical course, this one is very, very impressive. I mean, obviously we do have some challenges. We want everyone to be at that district percentage, but overall we are at parity, and so we feel really good about that. But we still have work to do. We're aware of that. One of the things that we'll be doing as a next step for us, I'm in conversation with the chief of schools right now. Emily, with the help of Brenda and DSM, that's Dr. Sarah Martinez, they, what they did, they broke the data down, the equitable access data, by feeder pattern. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. And so we're in conversations now to have discussions with each feeder pattern and conversations with Dr. Grisham about looking at not only where the gaps are, but the genesis of the gaps. Our goal is that if we see that we have a gap by the time a student gets to 7th or 8th grade, did it start in 3rd grade? And as a feeder pattern, let's work together to make sure that as the students mature in our system, that we see a degradation in those gaps. So I'm really excited about that. We've been working towards that. All of us have been struggling to get to that point, but now that we have this data and it's been broken down by feeder pattern, I'm really excited about the next steps. So.
But we're not going to share it with Anna.
So that is, I believe that is it for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
So in summary tonight, we talked a little bit about the two areas, empowered student learning and equitable access as it applies to state accountability and our community-based accountability system. So when you look at this slide, this is the 21-22 school year that we are discussing tonight, the results of that. That was the last year under our current accountability system. So our accountability system is changing for this current year. So next year when we're sitting here at this time, we will be looking at some changes to the system. What feeds that system, predominantly the state assessments, a big portion of that is changing along with our STAR format of the test and how students will approach answering the questions within that test. So these are all the things that, again, as I mentioned earlier, we don't control, right? These are things that are bestowed upon us, upon every school district, upon our students. And we're not shying away from that. We certainly participate in that, but it's much more. So Emily and I were talking today actually about her child. I have a granddaughter in this district, I know, is if they come home with a B in math, what does that really tell me? I'm going to have many more questions about that B. I want to know specifically what skills are they doing well in, what areas are they maybe needing a little assistance in. Even with that B, are they walking away with a passion for learning? Those are the things that we want to address and we want to dig deeper into. So Madam President, I'm going to come back to your question here. So if we go back, and pardon me for just a minute, to this question, look at this key question for a minute. Madam President, you talked about looking at SMART goals. What are we really doing with this? How are we going forward? So look at this key question. To what degree do students have the opportunity to engage in these meaningful learning experiences, to deeply explore and investigate the areas of aptitude and interest for their future? These key questions are not intended to say this student will reach 85% or this campus is going to reach 90%. It's to what degree. So when we are thinking about these key questions, this is intended to spark reflection and dialogue. So I'm just going to point out a couple of key things, because we've been working with our campuses on improvement plans. We are working on the district improvement plan. When you talk with a student about a meaningful learning experience, the key portion here is their response. What is it that they consider that meaningful learning experience, and how do we help create that for each and every student? For the students to have the opportunity to engage, then what are those opportunities? So as our teachers and our PLCs sit and plan for that student learning, what are they thinking through as they're thinking about the opportunities to provide to them? So this is not just about reaching a certain percentage. It is very much about that reflection and dialogue. So in conclusion this evening, so where are we going? So what's coming, right? We've addressed two areas this evening. So what is coming at our next meeting as we meet is to look at goals 2, 3, and 5, addressing empowered staff, family engagement, and the safe and innovative learning environments. All three not included within state accountability, not measured. We are looking at campus identification. So Dr. Benz talked a little bit about those key questions, and we just looked at one. So we're looking at that campus identification, in which our campuses are choosing those focus areas for the work for this year. And so we're going to talk about signaling in a process that we have embraced with them, and to really look at that, where's their status of their initial starting point, and then looking at that progress throughout the year. We will also, as I stated, we are establishing our district and our campus strategies and for our improvement plans. And we are also continuing our learning in this process as a community-based accountability system through our collaboration with TPAC, which is the Texas Public Accountability Consortium. And those are districts across the state who are embracing CBAS, the community-based accountability system, as well. And because they feel exactly what we feel. It's one of those that it's not about the either or the or, but it's about the and, to help us tell a much more comprehensive and richer and deeper story about who we are within this district. And so our report, for our very first report, is going to be shared on our district website tomorrow. So I'm very, very excited, and we certainly encourage each and every member of our community to view that. And this is a first year, right? This is our first step into it. We know it's not going to be perfect, but we are very excited about the journey ahead and the opportunities that we have before us.
I do have a question as we continue ahead. And I love what you said. It's about the and. My son, one time, he got a grade that wasn't an A. It actually wasn't even a B. And I said, sweetheart, what is going on here? And we discussed it. I thought I did an awesome job as a mom and should have gotten a gold star. Later, though, I heard him talking to one of his friends about his mom always harping on his grades. And so here it was, I thought that I had done a good job trying to reflect that robust and be curious, but that's not what he saw. And so I see that reflected in our community-based accountability system. I see us being curious and really wanting to make sure we build out a learner profile and we have some depth, some enrichment, some amazing things going on. And I love that. To your and part though, can we do this and? When I talk about a SMART goal, where will SMART goals be, or how is that at? There is this part where on the legislative committee, when we go talk to lawmakers, I will enjoy talking about this, but there's always this and needed. I want to see the SMART goal. Did y'all make it? Did you hit this mark? And so as we just continue forward, and as you said, I love this. This is us moving forward with the community going, y'all said you wanted to see where are taxpayer dollars going? What does learning look like? And y'all have delivered a great first product. I love this. What can we use in our legislative function when we all go talk to lawmakers and advocate to give them a sheet, something tangible that says, okay, this is in your vocabulary, here you go. Oh, and by the way, let me show you what learning looks like in Leander ISD. And I think that would be really powerful. So it's just something to think about as we continue to move forward.
Thank you very much, and thank you to our community, most importantly, who is a part of this process in creating these focus areas and a part of our goals. And I'd like to do a special thank you to Shannon Lombardo in our School and Community Relations Department for creating a very first report and product.
Beautiful. Thank y'all. It's a lot of work. And when did we start talking about our community, their hopes and dreams? That was 2019. 2019. So
yes,
wow.
It was, and I remember having the conversation with you, Madam President, after we came back and after we were starting to slowly come back in about revisiting, and we did, and we revisited to say, because we all lived a little different life for a while, right? As are these still our hopes and dreams? And it still came back to the exact things that we're going to be sharing in our report.
Well, and I just love the conversations, because at that same time as we were talking about our hopes and dreams, we also saw the graduate profile start talking to what do we expect our graduate and the I can statements. And so just as Dr. Gehring laid out at the beginning of the meeting, you see this alignment come through all these discussions. And you see us going out to the community going, what are your hopes and dreams? You went out and asked them again. And this is really exciting to see this all start coming together. So thank you all for that work. Board members, anything else?
This is my official request for that access data. I'll be happy in a board memo.
All right. Thank y'all so much. We'll move on to our next agenda item. Board members, I know there's a lot of discussions, but this is probably our last long discussion item. Discussion of the 2022-2023 Superintendent Evaluation Instrument. And then I think y'all get to vote on a couple things. So there'll be some action items coming up. Heads up, I'll probably be wanting to know about SMART goals too in the future. So, all right, whenever you are ready.
Okay, so continuing with the theme of alignment, we are here tonight to share with you the proposed 2022-2023 Superintendent Evaluation Instrument that was developed in alignment with the district strategic plan. And if you recall, we came to you asking, what are the most important things that you want to hold Dr. Gehring and our team accountable for in this year's work? And so we started with this notion of the theory of action. So if the Board of Trustees do X, superintendent will be able to do Y, so that we'll be able to realize the vision, mission, and graduate profile. In previous conversations, we've talked about what are the evaluation instruments that show progress around that. So we know our strategic plan is how we are going to achieve that vision, mission, and graduate profile. Thinking about the superintendent and his actions and roles, that's going to be detailed in the superintendent evaluation as a way to measure his work. And then we've also talked about just thinking about board purpose and goals and evaluation as well. So really here tonight we are talking about the superintendent evaluation. If you recall in conversations, we came to you and said, if everything is in the strategic plan of what we are going to be focusing on for the next 5 years, how do we narrow that down, and what's the top priorities for Dr. Gearing as he thinks about this year? And we had an affinity, and there was lots of conversations around that. And then we actually followed up and asked you to help us prioritize a little bit more and actually give us some, what are you comfortable with as far as proposed measures and evidence of each of those indicators that are going to say to you, yes, he's making progress on the work that we've identified as most important, or not. And so
the theme for tonight is definitely alignment, 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 and this is just a reminder of that. So we have our strategic plan based on the core values and the vision and mission, with the graduate profiles, our North Star, which sets the course, as Sarah just said, of the 5 years. You all just got to see an example of the community-based accountability system, which is directly aligned to that plan, and now we are bringing to you a proposed evaluation tool that, based on that feedback that you all did in terms of your priorities and which evidence you think is most important, we've drafted to help support the work that we will be doing this year. In a couple of weeks, we'll be bringing you the dips and sips, and you're going to be able to see that alignment even further. And this is the superintendent's evaluation is a key part to all of this, and so you have a copy of that in your packet, and so we just wanted to give you an opportunity to ask any questions and have a discussion if need be. Our intent is to go ahead and put this on consent for next year, and then we will be ready now to let Dr. Gearing know what it is that we're going to hold him accountable for this year.
So let me just clarify, what you have in hard copy that you're all looking at is not what she's talking about at all. So this is the current evaluation tool and self-report that's in your packet for 21-22. And you're going to be doing that official evaluation next time. What she's talking about is in the board packet, in board book, which is the new evaluation tool, which looks a little similar, but is much more refined, based on the feedback that you've given over several sessions.
So we will open up to questions, discussion.
And board members, this is scheduled for consent. Are there any questions now that you have? I forgot how long I was supposed to wait, but I think I've waited long enough. I did well? Okay. All right.
they tell me I wait 9 seconds, so I don't know.
So there is a whole lot of work here, and there was a whole lot of work in our community-based accountability. So I'd like to just be able to take a moment to recognize all our staff working on this alignment and this paperwork to make sure that we have awesome learning going on in our community and in our district. Can we thank them, y'all? It's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on. Okay, here comes some action item, y'all. Consider approval of the notice of elections. I either need some discussion or a motion.
I move to approve the notice of election for the November 8, 2022 general election for the purpose of electing one trustee each for the positions designated as Place 1, Place 2, Place 5, Place 6, and Place 7, and for the special elections for the voter approval, tax rate election, and attendance credit election.
I second.
Have a motion from Anna, second from Christine. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. 6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. We'll move on to consider approval of the Williamson County Joint Election Agreement and Contract for Election Services.
I move the board approve the Williamson County Joint Election Agreement and Contract for Election Services.
I second.
I have a motion from Anna, second from Christine. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. 7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. 6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Seeing 2 hands being raised. All right, operations. We will move on to discussion of a resolution nominating an individual to the TCAD Board of Directors.
Gina Mitsky is going to do this one for us.
Is this on? Okay. So last year it was Williamson Central Appraisal District that we had a board nominee, or y'all need to nominate a board member. This year it's Travis. It's every other year. So really tonight it's just advising you of that, and the nomination needs to be made before October 13th or by that meeting so that we can get it back to the Central Appraisal District. I don't know if y'all have any questions about the process.
All right, and this isn't for a motion tonight. This is just for discussion. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. Great job.
Thank you.
And 9:07.
I know.
I know.
Trying to get y'all out of here.
It's exciting. All right. I think you're going to stay put, though, for the next one.
I am. I'll close it out.
All right. All right. So if we stay till midnight, then it's all your fault.
Oh.
Update of FTEs for the 2022-2023.
Yes, this is just to make sure you were advised that we did add a position after the adoption of the budget. There was no add to the general fund budget. We moved over contracted services to cover the cost. It should be more cost effective in-house, but did want to make you aware of the FTE. And then in addition to that, I wanted to make sure I put out there again, like I did last year, just all of the positions that we've either are covering with ESSER federal funds or that we moved from general fund to ESSER funds. It's really just more kind of a tracking of this and to make sure you're aware of, there's a lot of positions that will come back into general fund, and those are being assumed in those years. So we are taking that into consideration so we don't have, the funding cliff, so to speak.
I just want to make sure you caught what she just said, because that's really, really important. You want to say it again?
You want me to ask what I asked?
But
these ESSER positions are being funded by ESSER funds. So when those funds run out, they will need to be either into the general fund. We're going to have to decide that. And can you just announce that total so people at home can hear that?
Absolutely. So these funds are used for various reasons. We're hiring positions that are needed due to the pandemic. Those are noted in here. We have the virtual learning, that type of thing. But also we have used it to maintain continuity in the general fund budget, which means we've moved some positions over to ESSER from general fund. We are assuming those positions will come back to the general fund once the funds are depleted, but funds those are only the positions that came from general fund over that are being assumed for future years. Any positions that were hired with ESSER funds that came on board are not assumed in future budgets. That's a decision to be made at the time, and whether or not there are funds available and the positions are necessary, they'll be considered then.
I want to talk. Yeah, it does, yeah.
Was that clear? I'm sorry if that was.
Excellent job. All right.
That's it.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
you. You have concluded us at 9:10. Now, before you turn off your laptops, I am told that I need to explain this carefully and slowly for our community. If you notice, after we come back from closed session, one of our action items is a board meeting debrief. The board meeting debrief, there is a link in your agenda item. It is for board members to be able to click on that link and put in anything that you needed to help do your job that we didn't have. And that goes to Mitchie and Cindy. So if we needed to take another 10-minute break and I didn't give y'all one, or if y'all thought 2 minutes was too long or too short, or the presentation was lacking something, or had wonderful information, whatever information you want to give to let us know how to help conduct the meeting, to get you the supplies and support you need to do your job, theory of action, please fill that out, and that'll go to Mitchie. We will not be working on that when we come back, so because I'm guessing all the computers will be done. And Anna is having fun typing over there. I can see you out of the corner of my eye. All right, it is 9:11, and we are going to be going into closed session. We'll be going into closed session for purposes permitted by the Texas Government Code 551.071, consultation with our attorney regarding pending or contemplated litigation and our attorney-client privilege matter. Texas Government Code 551.074, deliberation regarding resignations, terminations, employment, reassignments, duties, and evaluation of personnel and public officers. Texas Government Code 551.0821, deliberation regarding matters whereby personally identifiable information regarding one or more students will be disclosed. Texas Government Code 551.074, deliberation and consideration of employment of a chief financial officer. And Texas Government Code 551.074, deliberation and consideration of employment of the Cypress Elementary School principal. There will be no action taken in closed session. We will come back out to open for any closed session items that need action. All right, board members, it is 9:51. We are back in open session. Are there any motions from closed session?
I move that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendations of Pete Poppy for Chief Financial Officer for the Office of Superintendent, 2-year term employment contract for personal additions as presented in accordance with the salary scale, policies, and contract of Leander Independent School District for the 2022-2023 school year.
I second.
I have a motion from Anna, second from Christine. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 6 ayes, no nays, motion carries.
I move the Board of Trustees accept the recommendations of Maggie Gestel for principal at Cypress Elementary School, 1-year probationary employment contract for personal addition as presented in accordance with the salary scale, policies, and contract of Leander Independent School District for the 2022-2023 school year.
I second.
I have a motion from Anna, second from Christine. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 6 ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Last one. I move the Board of Trustees accept the recommendations for teacher employment contract for personal additions as presented in accordance with the salary scale, policies, and contract of Leander Independent School District for the 2022-2023 school year.
I second.
I have a motion from Anna, second from Christine. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Board members, as part of our continuous improvement process, when you leave, there is our graph on the side for you to put how you feel tonight went as far as feeling energized and hopeful, and did we do good board work. We will be reviewing the results of these at our Team of 8 training, and then deciding if we want to move forward with it. We have concluded all the items on our agenda. There are no objections. We will adjourn 9:53. Thank you, everybody.